Who are you? What do you do? And let's dive in.
Yeah, totally. Thanks so much for having me. Lin Sang, I think I saw you at API Days New York. You're always busy talking to somebody. You're on big stage too. So sorry we didn't have chance to formally meet in person there. I've just celebrated being in tech industry for 25 years. So I started my career in IBM, and I almost thought I would just end my career there. But 5 years ago, I joined a startup company, same with Christian Posta, Solo.io, which was a company focused on API gateway back then when I joined. And we were in the gist of trying to, gain momentum in the service mesh space. And I brought the Istio background to our company, which is why I was hired. And honestly, it was a big career change for me. I decided to take a shot, right, from like one of the biggest tech company to one of the smallest startup. So it was like 30 people when I joined, and I my role at Solo is head of the open source department at Solo. Over the past few years, you probably saw a lot of work we're doing in the open source, from glue, which you're probably already familiar with, and we donated glue to CNCF as K Gateway. We launched K Agent. We launched the Agent Gateway, which is another gateway project we launched because we find our Envoy doesn't fit our needs with the dynamic protocols of agentic AI with MCP and A2A, and we decided to start from ground up to create a new Rust-based proxy. That's how Agent Gateway was born. What else? We also create a couple of other agentic AI related projects, but the most popular one are K Gateway, uh, Agent Gateway, and K Agent.
Yeah.
Part of my other role is just contributing to the open source community on the projects we contribute to, which are Istio, K-Agent, K-Gateway, and Agent Gateway. I just finished my term on CNCF technical oversight committee, so I'm kind of an expert now, taking projects to CNCF through different stages. I'm also the KubeCon Europe and North American co-chair. So if you ever go to KubeCon for the next two conferences, you'll probably see me a lot. Um, and I started give my first talk to API Days in Paris last year. So the New York one I saw you was my second API Days conference.
Yeah, API Days is the best API conference in my opinion. I mean, I'm definitely biased because I've been helping them over the years, but it's the one that is the most about the ideas, the topics. It's hard running an event, as you know, KubeCon, to balance between the community, the speakers, and the vendors and what the vendors want.
Very
Um,
hard,
but
yeah.
but Mehdi and team, they're very thoughtful about that balance. And so always provide them feedback. But it's the best event, API specific event that I think is out there. So why do you speak? Why do you do the community work as part of what you do?
You mean in general or just
Yeah, just
API days?
no, just all events and community. Like I'm an evangelist, so I'm and a storyteller. So I'm always curious, why do you speak?
I actually really love giving talks. I find out some of the feedback I got from people were like, you actually look like a different person when you're on stage, because somehow I just get very excited
Yeah.
and I feel very accomplished. And I also love the fact I actually can connect with my audience when I was giving a talk. As we work day to day in front of computers a lot. Giving a talk is actually like the best part of my job, I think, in my opinion. And I just become super lucky. I mean, I've been a speaker for a long time, but I think just for the past year, I got really, really good at it. And that opens doors to, get invited into different conferences. Like, for instance, I was giving the talk on API Days in Paris. And one of the organizer of Mobile World Congress was an attendee in my talk. And right after my talk, he invited me to give a talk at Mobile World Congress, which I never thought I would go. And that opens the door for me, not needing to go through like the call for paper process, just got invited. And I just also, like yesterday, I got an email. I got invited to speak at Agentic and MCPCon in Japan in September, giving a keynote. I was like, wow, I didn't even thought I would be going, but now it's like, okay, I got another opportunity to go to Japan, and also always constantly motivate me to do better. I'm a speaker. I tend to not only just tell a story, but I actually tell a story through a live demo. So I do put a lot of effort into my talk. But I find out it's it's very relatable for people, which I really enjoy that. I used to be a speaker. I just show up and reuse the slides I had because I'm an expert in that domain. But then I find out it's actually really hard to be relatable to people in the audience. And also because I'm the expert in the domain, and I would be talking at a deeper level than people actually wanted to hear a lot of times. So, like for instance, I've been in working on Istio for 10 years almost, 9 or 10. So I'm definitely an expert on the project. And I think it was 3 years ago or 2 years ago, I gave an Istio talk at QCOM, and QCon is literally one of the best conference in terms of getting feedback. And the feedback I got was like, okay, you spoke too fast. Okay, you went a little bit too deep. Those type of feedback really, really woke me up. It's not like how much you know, it's like how you can relate to people and make yourself memorable. So it opens up future, speaking engagement. So yeah, I just find it's fun.
I love that. I mean, your enthusiasm on stage at CubeCon in Atlanta, I was like, wow, okay, yeah. It spoke to me because this, I care about APIs, don't get me wrong. I care about APIs. I'm definitely deeply an expert, similar to you on Istio, but I'm in it for the stories and I'm in it for the talking to people. My wife is a folklorist. She has her master's in folklore and storytelling and how history actually gets remembered and what gets forgotten and what gets remembered. And it's like you said, those connections and so I'm looking for the connections. I'm looking for the stories and I'm looking for other people who are good at telling stories. And that's what kind of brought me to you. But I would like to go maybe into the tech a little bit in your expertise. And I rode the first wave of API management providers. So I was paid by Mashery, Apogee, 3Scale before Apogee got bought by Google and stuff. And I spent a lot of time at Postman answering, doing our Gartner work, which you have to have an API gateway to be in the Gartner quadrant, and we didn't have a
Mhm.
gateway. And so I kind of we'll say bullshitted my way into the Gartner quadrant. But now Postman just launched an AI consumer gateway, but I'm very interested in the gateway evolution. I think coming from the service mesh and kind of that world, what is a gateway? What's the purpose of a gateway when, as you see it, in not just APIs but as it moved into the AI world? Like why are gateways important?
Yeah, I think when I'm thinking about AI, I'm thinking about it needs the same characteristic to have something in the middle to mediate traffic, right? When I think about AI workloads, it is microservice plus, right? I think that's an easy way to think about it, right? Not only you have all the traditional problem, you want to control, secure, and observe your microservices, and plus there's additional characteristic you have to think through for AI workloads. For instance, MCP tools, right? You want to multiplexing federation for your MCP tools. The auth requirements is probably a lot higher because you don't trust the AI generated code, which could be what your agents is doing. So the sandboxing, security, and privacy, the auth requirements, the external authentication, authorization, becomes more critical. And also the actual context of that layer, the messages, the prompts that's being communicated between AI agents and to the large language model, to the MCP server. That's something we didn't have to worry too much with microservices, but now we have to worry about because those could be important to make some governance or security decisions. So I think gateway continue to play a critical role as people moving into having some of their workload to be agentic. I don't think people are going to be black and white where they would just do microservices entirely or they just have AI workloads entirely. So that puts additional pressure on API gateways because the requirement would be, do you want to run different gateways for your microservices and different gateways to your AI workloads? Or can we have a unified gateway that handles not only the microservices, but also the AI workloads? Um, and I think this is the projects like Agent Gateway that can play a key role to be the gateway, mediate the traffic, to be able to do policy, security, and governance, and be able to provide observability, metrics, and tracing for all the traffic comes through the gateway. So I think it's a super, super important infrastructure component for agentic AI workloads.
Yeah, I think and I think I like the way you said it is it's not just one gateway or it's different depending on what you're trying to accomplish and how you roll out your gateways for different purposes or whether you want one central or smaller gateways, more centralized or federated. But what's the role of open source do you see when it comes to the gateways and how enterprises adopt this infrastructure? Has open source changed in your perspective now that AI is out there?
Yeah, I mean, there is definitely, I think it's changing the dynamics too. So for instance, one of the foundation I started getting participated is the new Agentic AI Foundation. So some of the gateway projects we see are looking at finding a new home, for example, Agent Gateway. So I think the open source community is interesting because a lot of enterprises we are looking, they want an open architecture built in the open, not only the API, because if you look at the landscape of gateway, right? There is, if you're running gateway in Kubernetes, for instance, which a lot of people running gateway in production, especially in the cloud, are using Kubernetes. There is API standard for Kubernetes gateway API, right? But a lot of the large enterprise we work with, they're not only looking at is the gateway endorsing the open standards, which in the case we work with is Kubernetes Gateway API, but they're also looking at is the feature. Sometimes they are looking at is the gateway itself is also open source, and sometimes they even also asking is the feature I need also in open source, because a lot of enterprise definitely believe they want to adopt open, and they also want to be contribute and part of the journey along the way. So with everything changes so fast with I think doing it open allow us to iterate faster and be able to leverage community to help us like crowdsourcing testing and even contributing, have that feedback loop a lot faster. I mean, you've seen probably the how the MCP spec involves, right? The new release is coming out. I think the release candidate just went out a week ago, and the new release is coming out in July. One of the things I think an API gateway can do, particularly an API gateway that provides MCP gateway functionality, can do is help user actually bridging some of the spec changes rapidly, right? Because if the API gateway can perform some conversion from the old spec to the new spec, which is there are breakage changes for the upcoming spec, it can provide a smoother transition experience to MCP user in this case.
Yeah, the tooling relationship with the spec is so critical, and I've learned those things the hard way. I helped move Swagger to the Open API. I put it in the Linux Foundation and was co-chair of the Open API initiative for a while, and I helped
Nice.
async API as a spec grow and JSON schema as well, and learned a lot of hard lessons along the way that I probably about what the tooling can do to help make things smoother for customers. I'm currently building a open source governance solution for API integration, but AI, that intersection with AI. And we intend to put it in the CNCF. We're probably 6 months to 12 months away from that. Do you have any advice for me when it comes to, donating open source into the CNCF and getting on that? There's a rigorous process. I know, I've learned a lot about it, but do you have any advice for me?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the first question I would ask you is, have you decided you want to donate to CNCF and not any other foundation?
That's a good question. It's still on the table, and I'm still doing my homework there. And that's kind of why I asked you, how you see open source, because open source isn't the same as I've been involved since like 2008, 6, it's 2006, 8, and it's changed in the last 20 years. And so I'm still deciding that. But the CNCF, as far as in the venture capital space, it feels like you either join uh, something like Y Combinator for a network effect when you're a commercial, but if you're doing a commercial open source, CNCF is what you do to get that kind of network effect. And so I need to find some better answers to your question. We're still trying to figure that out. But the CNCF and the Linux Foundation seems like the primary path that people take. So that's kind of what we're thinking right now.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason I'm asking is I also mentioned about the Agentic AI Foundation.
Mhm.
So that might be worth looking into just to see which one
Yeah,
is a better fit.
yeah.
But one thing I could share is donating a project to CNCF is actually a lot simplified now because CNCF has 3 stages with project. The first stage is sandbox, which the bar is very low because we want a project that can fast innovate at CNCF. And I think the requirements is it's very, very low, and the process is also very fast. Once your project is submitted, the TOC normally review within a month or two. So it's like rapidly fast. The second stage and the third stage is incubation and graduation. That's when it's getting very hard. It takes very long time. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm an expert on this before the process changes again. So
Yeah.
feel free to reach out if you have any questions when you cross that point. I remember I took a project, I tried to take a project to CNCF at Sandbox 3 years ago, and it failed because the process was so complex. But now it's a lot easier. They review fast and they give you answer yes or no. If it's just know. They actually explain to you why and what you can do to make it accepted. So it's a lot easy to work with.
That's that gives me hope. But I think we're ready. But like you said, I think I have some more questions we need to answer before we move forward. Um, where can people tune into your work and hear more stories and what you're doing? How can people find you?
Yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so that's probably one of the best way to reach out to me. I'm also active on CNCF Slack and also the new Agentic AI Foundation Discord. I'm also around for the project Discord, such as Agent Gateway and K Agent. So from the project website, you will be able to find out how to access the Discord as well.
Great. Definitely I'm on some of those and tune into you already there. But I think for other people, one last question. What motivates you? What keeps you going every day in your tech career?
This is a great question. Honestly, I've been thinking about this question every single week. The reason is, like I said to you, I've worked in the tech industry for 25 years. So I almost start to challenge myself. If I don't get paid, would I do my job tomorrow? So those are the questions I've been thinking every single week. I think my job is very flexible in a sense that, like I've mentioned to you, I love to speak and I have a lot of speak arrangements. A lot of them are invited. A lot of them I go through conference process like many of you do, which I have a good successful rate too. So I think, getting to connect with the community, travel to new place is super exciting. And also I find out, a very fascinating fact of my job, maybe most of the tech job is I actually spend a tons of percentage of my time learning new things. With the Agentic AI, I feel like, oh my gosh, every time I come back from a conference trip, whether I'm learning new things from the trip from other people, how other people are consuming some of the open source projects I care about. And then when I come back to the office, then I realize, oh my gosh, technology has changing. For instance, there's like a progress disclosure with MCP, there's code mode with MCP, how do we actually make MCP more efficient? And reading the change on the new MCP spec, it's like I'm just very happy that I actually got to learn new things. And imagine you get paid to learn new things, right? Because when you go to college, you actually have to pay big tuition to learn new things. But now I got paid to do my job, learning new things, and I would say that's a good chunk of my time every single week. So, and then another good chunk of my time was speaking and connecting to different people, and also write content. I love writing contents, especially sometimes when I write contents, I feel like, okay, something inspire me and I want to write it down. So that actually no longer feels like a job.
Yeah, that becomes very nourishing for me, writing and gathering those ideas and working through them. Another thing I noticed with you that I learned